Well, what is it, fellas?
Mr. Benny, how long have you been standing?
Jack Webb was known to millions of viewers as the calm, serious, and disciplined Sergeant Joe Friday on the hit television series Dragnet. On screen, he was the picture of control. His voice was steady. His face rarely showed emotion, and his words were short and direct. "Just the facts, ma'am," became one of the most famous lines in television history. But behind the cameras, the real Jack Webb was far more complex. He was ambitious, extremely disciplined, and deeply committed to realism in television. He believed that police officers should be shown with respect and accuracy, not exaggerated for drama. This strong belief helped him build a powerful career in radio and television, but also created tension with many people he worked with. Webb was not the type of man who liked compromise. He had a clear vision in his mind, and he expected everyone around him to follow that vision exactly. Actors were told to read lines word for word. Writers were expected to stick closely to real police procedures. Directors were often overruled if their ideas did not match Webb standards. Because of this, some people admired him deeply, while others found him difficult and controlling. Over time, stories began to spread in Hollywood about Webb's strict nature. Some said he was brilliant but stubborn. Others said he was fair but cold. A few claimed he could be harsh when challenged. While there is no strong proof that he openly announced a list of actors he hated, there were clearly professional conflicts with several well-known figures. These clashes were not always loud public feuds, but they reflected differences in personality, creativity, and control. Webb came from a difficult childhood in Los Angeles, raised by his mother and grandmother after his father left before he was born. Growing up during hard times shaped his personality. He valued order, discipline, and self-reliance. Later, during World War II, he served in the Army Air Forces, where military structure further influenced his way of thinking. After the war, he entered radio, quickly finding success with crime dramas that focus on realism. When Dragnet moved from radio to television in the early 1950s, it changed crime drama forever. The show worked closely with the Los Angeles Police Department to make stories feel real. Webb believed that accuracy was more important than emotional drama. That belief became the center of his career, but it also became the reason for many professional disagreements. Some actors wanted more creative freedom. Some writers wanted deeper emotional scenes. Webb, however, believed the facts were enough. As his success grew, so did his control over his productions. He produced and supervised shows like Adam, 12, and Emergency, continuing his realistic style. But the same strict standards that made these shows successful also created quiet tensions behind the scenes. To understand the conflicts that followed, it is important to understand one simple truth about Jack Webb. He did not separate his personality from his work. His shows reflected who he was: serious, disciplined, loyal to law enforcement, and unwilling to bend easily. For some, that made him a genius. For others, it made him very hard to work with. And it is within these professional struggles that we begin to see how certain actors and collaborators found themselves at odds with one of television's most determined creators. One of the most talked about professional clashes connected to Jack Webb involved actor Richard Boone during production of the television series Heck Ramsey. By the time this show was created in the early 1970s, Boone was already a respected television star, best known for his strong presence in Western dramas. He had confidence, experience, and a reputation for being serious about his craft. When he agreed to star in Heck Ramsey, he believed he would have creative input in shaping the character and tone of the series. The show itself was an interesting mix of Western storytelling and detective investigation. It followed a former gunslinger who used new scientific methods to solve crimes in the Old West. Behind the scenes, however, the production was connected to Webb's company, Mark 7 Limited. That meant Webb had significant control over scripts, casting decisions, and the general direction of the series. At first, everything appeared to move smoothly. Boone appreciated the unique concept of the show, and the early episodes suggested a fresh approach to the Western genre. But tension slowly began to build when Webb started making changes to scripts and creative plans. Writers that Boone trusted were replaced. Directors were sometimes removed or overruled. Scenes were adjusted to fit Webb's vision of structure and realism. For Webb, this was normal. He believed strong leadership required strict oversight. For Boone, However, it felt like interference. He saw himself not just as an actor for hire, but as a creative partner who deserved respect and influence. Reports from people involved in the production later suggested that disagreements became more frequent. Boone preferred emotional depth and character exploration, while Webb favored tight scripts, clear pacing, and minimal dramatic excess. Their personalities were also very different. Boone was known to speak his mind openly. Webb, on the other hand, believed authority should not be questioned once a decision was made. These different attitudes created a difficult working environment. While there is no solid evidence that Webb publicly declared hatred toward Boone, it is clear that the relationship became strained. Boone reportedly felt frustrated by what he saw as constant control from Webb's office. Webb, meanwhile, likely saw Boone's resistance as a challenge to the discipline he demanded from his productions. The show lasted only a short time, airing from 1972 to 1974, and although ratings were not disastrous, it never became a long-running hit like Dragnet or Adam 12. Some observers later suggested that internal creative struggles played a role in limiting the show's growth. What makes this conflict important is not loud arguments or public insults, but the deeper issue of creative control. Both men were strong personalities who believed deeply in their own methods. Boone valued artistic freedom. Webb valued structure and authority. When two experienced professionals with firm beliefs try to lead the same project, tension can naturally follow. In Hollywood, such clashes are common, but in Webb's case, his reputation for strictness made these disagreements more noticeable. To some crew members, he was a disciplined leader protecting quality. To others, he was unwilling to share power. The situation with Richard Boone illustrates a larger pattern in Webb's career. He respected talent, but only if that talent operated within his system. If an actor pushed too hard against that system, the relationship could become uncomfortable. This was not necessarily about personal hatred. Instead, it reflected Webb's deep need for order and control in his professional world. In many ways, this pattern would repeat itself in other collaborations throughout his long career in radio and television. Jack Webb was known to millions of Americans as the serious and calm voice of law and order. Through his famous television series Dragnet, he became the face of discipline, structure, and authority. On screen, he played Sergeant Joe Friday, a man who believed in facts, truth, and rules. His famous line, "Just the facts, ma'am," became one of the most remembered lines in television history. But behind the camera, away from the bright lights and studio sets, the real Jack Webb was far more complex. He was not just an actor reading lines. He was producer, director, writer, and a man who wanted full control over his projects. This strong need for control made him successful, but also created tension with many people around him. Hollywood in the 1950s and 1960s was very different from today. Studios had strict systems. Actors were often under contract and had little freedom. Directors and producers held most of the power. In that environment, Jack Webb built his reputation as a perfectionist. He believed that details mattered. If a line was written a certain way, it had to be spoken exactly that way. If a scene was meant to feel serious, he did not want actors adding jokes or emotions that were not in the script. For Webb, realism was everything. He wanted his police dramas to feel real and honest. However, not every actor enjoyed working under such strict rules. Acting is a creative job. Many performers like to bring their own style, personality, and emotion into a role. When they worked with Webb, they sometimes felt limited. Some believed he was too cold or too demanding. Others felt he did not listen to suggestions. Over time, stories began to spread that Webb had difficult relationships with certain actors. Rumors grew that before his death in 1982, he had privately expressed strong dislike toward a few people he had worked with. It is important to understand something clearly. Hollywood gossip often becomes bigger than reality. When a powerful figure like Jack Webb disagrees with someone, the story can grow into something dramatic. Some reports say he disliked actors who were late, unprepared, or unwilling to follow direction. Others claim personality clashes played a role. But very few confirmed statements exist that clearly prove he hated anyone in a personal way. What we do know is that he valued professionalism above friendship. Webb's personality shaped his working relationships. He spoke in a calm but firm way. He did not shout often, but when he did, people noticed. He expected actors to respect the script and the structure of the show. On a series like Adam, 12, which he also produced, the same serious tone continued. He wanted the police officers portrayed as heroes who followed rules and served the community. If an actor tried to make the role more dramatic or emotional than planned, Webb would correct them. Some actors admired this discipline. They believed he created one of the most realistic police shows ever made. Others felt that his strict style left little room for creativity. Over time, disagreements became part of his legend. The idea that he named 5 actors he disliked most before his death adds mystery to his story, whether fully true or partly exaggerated. It reflects a tension that often exists in creative industries in the end, Jack Webb's legacy remains strong. His influence on crime television can still be seen today in modern police dramas. His demand for structure and realism changed how these stories were told. Yet his life also reminds us that great success often comes with conflict. Strong leadership can inspire loyalty, but it can also create resistance. Jack Webb was not a simple man. He was disciplined, focused, and sometimes difficult. And that complexity is what keeps people talking about him even decades after his passing. Jack Webb's career continued to grow. So did his reputation as one of the most disciplined men in television. By the time Dragnet became a cultural force in America, Webb was no longer just an actor playing a role. He had become a symbol of authority. Viewers believed in him. Police departments respected him. Young actors either admired him or feared working with him. This mix of respect and tension created the kind of environment where strong opinions could easily turn into personal conflict. When people today talk about the 5 actors he supposedly disliked the most, they are really talking about something deeper: creative control, ego, pride, and the pressure of fame. Television production during the 1950s and 1960s was not easy. Long hours, strict budgets, and demanding schedules were normal. Webb believed that discipline was the only way to survive in that world. If an actor arrived late, forgot lines, or questioned the script too much, he saw it as disrespect. He had spent years building his brand. He wanted his shows to represent professionalism. Unlike some producers who allowed improvisation, Webb preferred exact wording. He believed real police officers did not speak in dramatic speeches. They spoke clearly and directly. That was the style he demanded from everyone on set. Some actors struggle with this approach. Many performers are trained to explore emotion deeply. They like to adjust dialogue to make it feel natural. But on a Webb production, that freedom was limited. There are stories that certain guest stars on Adam, 12 felt uncomfortable because they were corrected repeatedly during scenes. Webb was not interested in hurting anyone's feelings. He was interested in maintaining tone and realism. Still, constant correction can make an actor feel small or frustrated. Over time, frustration can turn into resentment. It is also important to remember that Hollywood is built on strong personalities. Actors, directors, and producers often have big egos. When 2 strong personalities meet, conflict is almost unavoidable. Some reports suggest that Webb had particular difficulty with actors who were already famous before joining his projects. Established stars sometimes expected special treatment. Webb did not believe in that. On his set, everyone followed the same rules. That equal treatment may sound fair, but for someone used to be in the center of attention, it could feel insulting. Rumors about Webb naming 5 actors he disliked most likely come from private conversations shared later by others. There is no official recording where he publicly attacked anyone. In fact, Webb was generally private about personal disagreements. However, people close to him describe him as someone who held grudges if he felt betrayed. If an actor publicly criticized his show or refused to follow instructions, he did not easily forget it. Loyalty mattered to him. Trust mattered to him. When that trust was broken, the relationship rarely recovered. Another factor that may have caused tension was Webb's serious personality. He was not known for being playful on set. Unlike other Hollywood figures who joke between takes, Webb stayed focused. Some actors found that atmosphere too cold. They preferred lighter environments where creativity flowed freely. Working under constant seriousness can feel heavy, especially during long shooting days. It would be unfair to paint Webb as a villain. Many actors respected him deeply. They appreciated his clear direction. They knew exactly what he wanted. There was no confusion. For disciplined performers, his sets were organized and efficient. Conflict usually happened when expectations did not match. An actor expecting creative freedom might feel restricted. Webb expected obedience to the script. That difference in expectation created friction. A.S.'s health declined later in life. Stories about his past conflicts became more dramatic. People are often more willing to share secrets when someone is no longer alive to respond. The idea that he hated 5 specific actors may be an exaggeration shaped by Hollywood storytelling. The truth is likely more complex. He may have strongly disliked certain behaviors rather than the individuals themselves. In the end, Jack Webb's career shows how leadership style shapes relationships. His strict, disciplined approach built a television empire and influenced police dramas for decades. But that same strictness may have cost him warm friendships within the industry. Fame magnifies personality. Strength becomes dominance. Confidence becomes stubbornness. For Webb, the line between professionalism and personal conflict was sometimes thin, and that is why the stories about his disliked actors continue to attract attention even today. When discussing the rumored list of actors Jack Webb supposedly disliked, it is important to move carefully and focus on documented tensions rather than repeating and proving claims. Jack Webb worked with dozens of performers across radio, film, and television. Over such a long career, disagreements were almost certain to happen. But disagreements in Hollywood are not always about hate. Often, they are about power, direction, contracts, and creative control. To understand the situation better, we must look at the kind of personalities Webb worked with and the professional environment of his most famous projects. One of the key elements of Webb's success was his insistence on authenticity. On Dragnet, he worked closely with real police departments. Scripts were often based on actual case files. Officers sometimes advised the writers. Because of this connection, Webb felt a strong responsibility to present law enforcement in a serious and respectful way. If an actor attempted to make a scene more dramatic than realistic, Webb could become frustrated. He believed exaggeration would damage the credibility of the show. For actors trained in theater or dramatic cinema, this restrained style could feel limiting. There were also reports that Webb did not easily tolerate unprofessional behavior. In the early days of television, some actors moved between projects quickly. Schedules overlapped, and exhaustion was common. If someone arrived late or appeared unprepared, Webb reportedly viewed it as a lack of respect for the entire production team. Crew members worked long hours behind the scenes. To Webb, discipline honored their effort. This strict standard may have created friction with performers who were used to more relaxed sets. Another source of possible conflict involved actors who questioned authority. During the 1960s and 1970s, American culture was changing. Many artists began challenging traditional systems, including law enforcement. Webb, however, remained firm in his support of police institutions. On series like Adam, 12 and later versions of Dragnet, he maintained a respectful portrayal of officers. If an actor personally disagreed with that perspective and tried to subtly shift the tone of performance, tension could arise. Creative differences rooted in political or social views can quickly become personal disagreements. It is also possible that some conflicts were simple personality clashes. Webb was known to be serious and focused. He rarely joked on set. Some performers thrive in high-energy, playful environments. When placed in a controlled and quiet atmosphere, they may feel uncomfortable. Misunderstandings can grow when communication styles differ. A short, direct instruction might be seen as rude by one person but efficient by another. Interestingly, many of Webb's long-term collaborators spoke positively about him. Actors who adapted to his structured approach often praised his clarity. They said he knew exactly what he wanted and did not waste time. This consistency built loyalty among those who shared his work ethic. Therefore, the idea that he broadly hated actors seems unlikely. It is more believable that he strongly disliked certain behaviors, lateness, improvisation without permission, or public criticism of the productions and Hollywood history. Dramatic headlines often simplify complex relationships. Saying producer hated 5 actors creates mystery and attracts attention. But professional disagreements are rarely that simple. People can respect each other's talent while still struggling to work together. They can argue about scenes yet acknowledge skill. Webb himself rarely spoke publicly about personal feuds. His interviews focused more on storytelling and discipline than on criticizing colleagues. As his career progressed into the late 1970s, television styles began to change. Police dramas became more emotional and character-driven. Webb's straightforward, documentary-like style felt old-fashioned to some viewers. That shift may have increased pressure behind the scenes. When industry trends move in a new direction, creative leaders can feel challenged. That tension sometimes spreads through a production team. In the end, the mystery surrounding the five actors is part of the larger legend of Jack Webb. His strong personality shaped his legacy. He built a brand based on order, realism, and authority. Those strengths brought success, but may also have created distance between him and certain collaborators. Rather than focusing on hate, it may be more accurate to view these stories as examples of how intense dedication to a vision can sometimes limit harmony on set. As the years passed and the golden age of early television slowly faded, the reputation of Jack Webb became more layered and complex. To some, he was a pioneer who helped shape the police drama genre. To others, he represented an older, stricter Hollywood style that did not always leave room for artistic freedom. This divide in opinion played a large role in how stories about his alleged dislike for certain actors continued to grow after his death. In truth, Webb's leadership style was both his greatest strength and his greatest challenge. Webb believed deeply in order. He valued preparation, structure, and respect for authority. These values were not only visible in Dragnet, but also reflected in the way he ran his productions. Scripts were tightly written. Scenes were carefully timed. Dialogue was delivered with precision. He often avoided dramatic music or flashy editing because he believed realism was more powerful than spectacle. This philosophy created a clear identity for his shows. Audiences knew exactly what to expect: straightforward storytelling, moral clarity, and respect for law enforcement. However, as television evolved during the 1970s, viewers began to prefer more emotional and character-driven stories. Police officers were no longer shown only as calm and perfect professionals. New dramas explored their personal struggles, doubts, and flaws. Compared to these newer programs, Webb's style appeared rigid. Younger actors entering the industry had grown up watching more expressive performances. When they worked under Webb's direction, some may have felt that the emotional range was too narrow. Leadership in creative industries requires balance. Too much freedom can cause chaos. Too much control can reduce creativity. Webb leaned strongly toward control. On set, he was known for speaking in short, direct sentences. He expected actors to follow instructions quickly. While some performers appreciated this clarity, others may have interpreted it as coldness. Misunderstandings in communication can easily turn into long-term tension, especially when pride is involved. Another factor that likely influences relationships was the pressure of maintaining a public image. Webb was closely connected with real police departments. He worked hard to ensure his shows supported law enforcement in a positive way. This responsibility may have made him extra careful about performances. If an actor portrayed a character in a way that seemed disrespectful or unrealistic, Webb would intervene immediately. To him, this was not personal criticism. It was protecting the integrity of the show. But from the actor's perspective, constant correction might feel personal. It is also worth remembering that Hollywood thrives on storytelling, not just on screen but behind the scenes. After Webb passed away in 1982, stories about his private opinions became more dramatic. When a powerful figure is no longer alive to clarify statements, rumors can grow without limits. The phrase "five actors he hated the most" sounds dramatic and mysterious. It captures attention. But real human relationships are rarely so simple. Dislike can come from temporary frustration. Strong words spoken in private moments can later be remembered as lifelong grudges. Despite these rumors, Webb's professional legacy remains strong. His influence can still be seen in modern crime dramas that focus on procedure and realism. Many producers today still study the structure of Dragnet episodes to understand pacing and clarity. That lasting impact shows that his strict methods achieved results. Even if some actors found him difficult, his work shaped television history